So now the GOP score, the Senate healthcare bill, is out. It's been out for a few days. Hey, no surprise. The bill's a giant piece of crap. It's essentially a giant tax cut for rich people and promises huge cuts in health insurance for the poor. So let's start out with some of the details on this. Now, since you know that this is a giant tax cut, I'm going to get into the details of this. Now, basically, the Senate bill repeals the Affordable Care Act taxes that levy a 3.8% fee on investment income. So, look, this went after the richest people, the people that do all the investment. We're going to hit them a little bit on taxes so we can pay for subsidies for poor people. That would make sense, right? That's a progressive tax. Doesn't necessarily discourage investment since it's only 3.8% tax. Because if you've noticed, the people on Wall Street do so many trades, high speed. They make a ton of money off these trades. So taxing them a little bit, 3.8% to make sure that people can afford health insurance, that kind of makes sense, right? At least in my opinion. It makes sense, right? Now, there's also a tax on people making $200,000 or more, or $250,000 for couples. So, again, these taxes are actually incredibly progressive that were written into Obamacare, all right? Which Obamacare, as we've talked about, it's not really all that progressive, but the taxes in here to help afford pay for the subsidies, they're actually very progressive. But of course, the Senate bill gets rid of them all, right? It also eliminates ACA taxes that target health insurers and makers of prescription drugs and medical devices. So there's your big pharma, there's your big insurance companies, all getting a giant tax cut. So in total, it cuts to nearly $1 trillion in taxes for the richest Americans. So that's the essence of this bill. That's why they had to do everything else to it, to basically make it into this enormous tax cut for rich people and corporations.
Yeah, I think all the CBO score had to be was they just had to write a sentence to Republicans where they just had to be like, hey, the whole healthcare bill thing, just put the word anti in front of healthcare bill, and that's what you're doing. That's your score. It's just the anti-healthcare bill. It is a healthcare bill that takes healthcare away from millions of people, that makes healthcare more expensive for the group of people that generally needs it the most, which is the elderly, that defunds Planned Parenthood, that takes cuts at Medicaid. It is nothing short of Orwellian. War is peace. Freedom is the police state. A healthcare bill is a bill that takes healthcare away.
Yeah, pretty much. So I've got more details for you, of course. So let me tell you how they get to be able to cut all these taxes. They went after Medicaid and subsidies to help poor people. You talked about that. I'm going to get into the specifics. By 2026, according to Vox, spending on Medicaid will be slashed by nearly $800 billion. That's $772 billion. As a result, there will be 15 million fewer people on Medicaid. And by 2026, spending on subsidies for private insurance will be slashed by $408 billion. Now, Republicans will look at that and go, well, problem solved. We wanted to get less people on Medicaid, and so we just cut it all, and less people on Medicaid. Problem solved. We win. Of course, it's not a win for the American people. That's a huge loss for everybody that relies on Medicaid. Now, they, of course, roll back the Medicaid expansion. That's in another part of the bill. And, of course, they, aside from rolling back the expansion, they made huge cuts to Medicaid as well, just the entire program overall. So the result of this, of course, is that, and you might notice how this is kind of funny in a way. Now, the first Trumpcare threw 24 million people off health insurance. The second iteration threw 23 million people off insurance. Getting a little bit better. This bill throws only 22 million people off health insurance. Oh, they're getting better each time. Let's try this another 22 times, and we'll get down to nobody being thrown off health insurance. I'm sorry, 22 million times. How about that? So now, that's the people just getting thrown off insurance. The people that still have insurance are not going to fare any better. In fact, your premiums are going to go up. Okay, among those with modest incomes, net premiums for silver plans would go up to $500. Would go up $500 for 21-year-olds, $1,300 for 40-year-olds, and an astonishing $4,800 for 64-year-olds. That's what you talked about when it hurt the elderly the most. And among those with higher incomes, net premiums would go down except for 64-year-olds who would face increases as high as $13,000. So, again, just as you said, it goes after older people. So, by the way, so they hit seniors that haven't hit the Medicare eligibility age, right? They're going to see a massive spike in premiums. Boy, it'd be a shame if these guys were a reliable voter group, wouldn't it?
Well, that's the thing about this is, like, when you hear people like Paul Ryan and people, like, when they talk about health insurance, the theme to take away from it is that they just hate the idea of insurance. Like, they hate the idea of health insurance.
Yes.
The whole purpose of having a healthcare system is that the healthy take care of the sick, because I'm sure you know this, Jeff, but someday you're going to be sick too.
No.
That's the whole point of healthcare. The healthy people take care of sick people so that one day when they're sick, they're also taken care of, and the cycle continues. So the idea of the prices going up on the elderly, well, those are generally speaking, older people get sick more, right? I mean, that's not always the case, of course.
And then we let them die when it happens.
The older you get, the more likely you are to get sick, and you eventually do typically. Unless you're, some people are lucky enough they're healthy, and then one day they're just, they just take a heart attack or whatever, and it's their time. We all die. That's inevitable. We all die. But
speak for yourself.
Get sick. That is. But for the most part, everybody gets sick. And the whole point of a healthcare system is that healthy people take care of sick people. That's what it's for. So the right, I mean, some people just hate the idea of health insurance.
Well, yeah, I mean, Paul Ryan.
The weird thing is like someone like a Rand Paul, who I could not disagree with more politically, but in this case, I can at least respect it because he's at least open about the fact that, yeah, I just don't like the idea of health insurance. I just don't like it. At least Rand Paul come clean about something like that. Rand Paul and other fringe libertarians like him, I'd rather have them than Republicans drafting this bullshit bill and having the gumption to call it a healthcare bill when, it makes the Affordable Care Act, which is a right-wing bill too. It's Mitt Romney's plan, more or less. Mm-hmm. It makes that look like Mother Teresa, because that bill, even though it's very flawed, it was still a step in a much better direction compared to what we had. And that's part of the problem. I mean, when you have, quote unquote progressive leadership, which is what we had during Obama, and you still pass Mitt Romney's healthcare plan, well, that sets the soil for some fringe right-wing shit to happen later, right, which is what we have now with this anti-healthcare bill, which is what it is. And I'm not saying this is only Obama's fault or whatever. I'm saying there's a connection here where this is a bigger statement and a bigger result of just the kind of fringe right versus center right commonplace of our politics, which is what we've pretty much gotten with Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, look, back to your point about how, Republicans don't understand health insurance. I think they kind of do. They just hate it.
They just hate it.
Yeah, they just hate it. Paul Ryan's a great example.
I think they just hate it.
Yeah, right. I mean, because, I've said before, mistakenly, like, oh, Paul Ryan doesn't understand how health insurance is supposed to work. Healthy people take care of sick people. That's why they pay higher, or pay premiums for sick people, and that's why we have pre-existing conditions protections. Well, they all understand that, and they hate it, and they just don't want you to have it. While they, of course, sit back with their government-funded socialist health care plans, which is funny, and nobody seems to make that point, or at least nobody in mainstream media seems to make the point of, oh, by the way, senators, the same ones that are voting to take your health care away or health insurance away are actually get health care from the government, and it's actually much better than yours. Nobody seems to make that point. Mm-hmm. Just saying. So, anyway,
or no one seems to hype the fact that the point is that Medicare is the most popular healthcare program in our country. People love Medicare, and the idea of expanding that to all just seems like such an obvious path to go down. Yeah,
but the Democrats hate it, and we'll get into that later. But first, let me get more into what effect it's going to have. So not only are you going to receive less subsidies for your insurance under this, but the value of your healthcare plan will be even worse. The report states that the actuarial value of healthcare plans will be reduced to 58%. Now, what does that mean? That means that after buying insurance, consumers would be responsible for 42% of their total healthcare expenses. Then what's the point of having insurance? I don't really see that much of a point if you're paying probably about almost half of what you would pay without insurance. It just seems like, I don't know, like there's insurance companies are just there they just exist to skim money off the top for you and not actually pay for anything. Oh wait, that is the whole point of private health insurance. Oops. Now, not only that, but look, you've got some other terrible things in this healthcare bill. Lifetime caps are going to make a return. Higher deductibles and copays, the very things that Republicans were screaming about when it came to, Obamacare. Like, oh my God, the premiums are going to go up. Yeah, premiums did go up for some people, and we don't deny that because it's a flawed healthcare plan to begin with. But in return, it actually helped millions and millions of people be able to afford health insurance. So there's your pro-con, I guess. You're going to get higher premiums if you're older. And, of course, you're going to get limited protections for people with pre-existing conditions. That's another thing that's, of course, that Republicans don't seem to care much about. In fact, they don't want people with pre-existing conditions to be able to afford health insurance because, again, they hate the idea of, oh, my God, I'm going to have to actually pay more so this guy with the pre-existing condition can actually get health insurance. I don't want to do that.
Plus, Jeff,
costs
those
me
people
money.
with pre-existing conditions, they can just get a job.
They can get a job.
They're just lazy, remember? You got a pre-existing, just get a job. That's always an option, right? Just get a job.
Yeah.
Pre-existing conditions.
Because it's not our fault you got into a car crash with your body. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Your body's health insurance should be just like car insurance, mandated for everybody. Oops, did I say that? Ridiculous, man. Calling this a healthcare bill is, first of all, you don't understand what health means, and you don't understand what care means. Especially the care, because they don't care. It is an anti-healthcare bill, just as you said. And, oh boy.
Yep.
You think it's going to get any better, the shit that they're going to roll out? No, it's going to get worse.
No, not at all. I mean, and it's insane that we live in a society where something with a 16% approval rating is potentially going to pass.
And things,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and of course, policies that have a 60% approval rating, well, they don't even get considered.
Talked about.
Hey, everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.